Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. So in our last deep dive, we really dug into how virtualization unlocked the ability to run multiple servers on one physical machine, right? But that technology, that was really just the how. It didn't explain the what or the why of the cloud. And that's exactly where the cloud operating model comes into play. So today, we're going to cut right through all the marketing fluff and truly demystify the cloud. We'll do that by breaking down its three core service models and what is, without a doubt, the single most important concept for security, the shared responsibility model.
All right, so let's take a look at our roadmap for today. First up, we're going to nail down a concrete technical definition of what the cloud actually is. From there, we'll dive into each service model, IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS, and we're going to use this great pizza as a service analogy to make it all crystal clear. And finally, we'll wrap things up with probably the most critical and honestly the most misunderstood piece of the puzzle, security and who's responsible for what.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning, the fundamentals. What is cloud computing really? I'm sure you've all heard that classic line, it's just someone else's computer. But you know what? That's a really dangerous oversimplification. To get a precise, technical definition that the entire industry actually bases itself on, we have to look at the official standard.
And that standard comes from the U.S. National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST. Now, they're a non-regulatory agency, which is why their definitions are so widely adopted. They create a common, vendor-neutral language for all of us in tech. So NIST lays out 5 essential characteristics that a service must have to be called true cloud computing. We're talking AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, they all have to meet these. And these aren't just, suggestions. They are the absolute blueprint for the entire cloud operating model. You see, when you put these 5 things together, it's a complete shift away from traditional IT. On-demand, self-service, broad network access, and resource pooling. That combination alone creates incredible efficiency. But the real game changers? Oh, that's rapid elasticity, the power to scale up or down almost instantly, and measured service. That's the one that turns IT from this huge capital expense into a simple operational one. It's like paying your electric bill. And that operational model, that's what truly defines the cloud.
Okay, so now that we have that solid definition, let's jump into our first service model, Infrastructure as a Service, or IaaS. I want you to think of this as the absolute bedrock, the foundational layer of the cloud. It gives you the most raw power and the most control. And to make this really stick, we're going to use that pizza as a service analogy I mentioned.
So with IaaS, what you're really doing is renting the fundamental building blocks, all virtualized, of course. In our pizza world, this is just like renting a fully equipped professional kitchen. The cloud provider gives you the oven, the gas, the counters, the plumbing, basically the virtual servers, the storage, and the networking. But, and this is key, you are responsible for bringing your own dough, sauce, and toppings, and for actually baking the pizza. You've got total control over the recipe and the whole cooking process.
And this really shows you that clear dividing line in IaaS. Here's the deal. The provider manages all the underlying virtualized hardware, the compute, the storage, the network. But from the operating system on up, that's all on you. You're the one installing, patching, and securing the OS. You manage the middleware, the database, your application code, all of it. Now, this gives you incredible flexibility, but you've got to understand it also means you're taking on maximum operational responsibility.
So when would you actually use this level of control? Well, IaaS is perfect for certain situations. It's the absolute go-to for what we call lift and shift migrations of old legacy apps, where you basically need to copy your on-prem environment as closely as possible. It's also critical for high-performance computing or any workload that needs a super custom OS configuration. Think about it. Using something like Azure Virtual Machines, you can spin up a whole fleet of Linux VMs, set up specific network security rules, connect them to high-speed disks. You get this fine-grained control that feels just like a physical data center.
All right, moving up the stack, we've got Platform as a Service, or PaaS. Now, if IaaS was all about giving you control over the infrastructure, PaaS is the exact opposite. It's all about hiding that infrastructure, abstracting it away to focus on one thing and one thing only, maximizing developer productivity. And trust me, it is an absolute game changer for software teams.
Let's go back to our pizza shop. In this scenario, PaaS is like getting a take-and-bake pizza. The shop has already done a bunch of the heavy lifting. They give you the prepared dough, the sauce, the cheese, it's all ready to go on the pan. All you have to do is add your favorite toppings, that's your application code, and then pop it in your own oven. The platform is ready for you, you just bring the secret sauce, your unique value. And this is where you see that huge shift in responsibility. With PaaS, the provider is now managing the entire underlying platform. We're talking the hardware, the OS, all the patching, even the runtimes like Java or Python. This frees up your development team from all that tedious, undifferentiated heavy lifting. Suddenly, their focus gets laser sharp on just two things: the application code and the data. I mean, from an efficiency perspective, this is a massive force multiplier for any software team out there.
So why PaaS? What's the big draw? Well, it's a massive accelerator for any modern software development. It's perfect for agile and DevOps teams because it just smooths out the entire CI/CD pipeline. The classic example is Heroku. A developer can write their web app, type one single command, literally git push Heroku main, and deploy it to the entire world. Heroku takes care of the servers, the OS security patches, the web server config, everything. The developer never, not even once, has to think about a virtual machine. They just focus on the code. It's that powerful.
Okay, now we're at the top of the stack. And this is the model that pretty much every single one of us uses every single day: software as a service, or SaaS. Now, this isn't about building or running apps anymore. This is all about consuming a finished product. It's all about turnkey simplicity.
So, to finish our pizza analogy, SaaS is simple. It's getting a hot, delicious pizza delivered right to your door. You're not managing the kitchen, you're not buying ingredients, you're not cooking, and you definitely don't have to clean up. You just open the box and enjoy. See the difference? You're consuming a service, not managing a system.
In the SaaS world, the provider handles pretty much everything. We're talking the whole shebang, from the physical data center all the way up to the application software itself. So your responsibility totally shifts. It becomes about administration and configuration. You control who gets access, you own the data you put into it, and this is absolutely critical, you are responsible for correctly configuring the security settings the app gives you. This last point is so important. Think about Salesforce or Microsoft 365. The platforms themselves are secure, but you are still the one responsible for making sure your data is shared and protected the right way inside that platform.
And really, SaaS has become the default choice for most standard business functions out there. It just makes sense, right? It lets a company use best-in-class software for super important things like CRM, HR, or team collaboration, all without the insane cost and complexity of trying to build and maintain it themselves. At the end of the day, it's about letting you focus your resources on what actually makes your business unique.
Okay, we've defined the service models. Now we need to talk about the most important part of operating in the cloud, period. And that's security. It doesn't matter which model you choose, IaaS, PaaS, or SaaS. There is a clear division of who does what when it comes to security, and you absolutely, positively have to understand it. This isn't just a suggestion, folks. It's a foundational principle.
So what is this principle? It's called the shared responsibility model. It's the framework that spells out who's responsible for what. And if you remember nothing else, remember this: the cloud provider is responsible for the security of the cloud. You, the customer, are always, and I mean always, no exceptions, responsible for your security in the cloud. Getting that simple distinction wrong is one of the top reasons we see data breaches in the cloud today. Seriously, it's not a guideline, it's the contract.
And this table just lays it all out perfectly. Just look at the IaaS column, right? The customer, that's you, is responsible for a huge chunk of the stack, from your data all the way down to the OS and network setup. Now, as you slide over to PaaS and then to SaaS, you can see the provider takes on more and more of that underlying platform. But, and you have to see this, look at that top row, data and access. That blue customer box, it never goes away. It is always your job across all three models. So if you mess up the user permissions in your SaaS app and leak a bunch of data, that's on you, not the provider.
Okay, so we've laid out the service models, we've talked about the all-important security responsibilities. So how do you choose? How do you actually make a decision? The thing is, it's not about which model is the best. It's about which model is the right tool for the job. So let's do a quick recap of the key trade-offs to help frame that choice.
At the end of the day, it all boils down to a strategic trade-off between control and convenience. It's really that simple. If you need maximum control, maybe for a tricky legacy app, you go with IaaS. If you need to maximize developer speed and get products out the door fast, you choose PaaS. And if you just need a business application that works with zero infrastructure headaches, you opt for the incredible convenience of SaaS.
You know, we talked about this earlier, but I really want to hammer this point home. Why is calling the cloud just someone else's computer so dangerous? Because it makes you forget everything we just talked about. it completely ignores the operating model, those 5 essential characteristics like on-demand service and rapid elasticity. It makes it sound like you're just renting a server, but you're not. You're consuming a dynamic service. And worst of all, it totally hides the shared responsibility model, making it way too easy to forget that you have a crucial job to do when it comes to security.
So let's wrap this all up. What's the main takeaway? The cloud is not one thing. It's a spectrum of services. IaaS gives you control. PaaS gives your developers speed. SaaS gives you turnkey convenience. And holding all of it together is that shared responsibility model. Knowing exactly where your security duties begin and end, that is the absolute first step to building a successful and, more importantly, a secure cloud strategy.
And I just want to leave you with this one final thought. That shared responsibility model, it's not just a guideline. It really is the fundamental contract that governs your security in the cloud. Ignoring it, it's like building a house without even glancing at the blueprints for the foundation. It really is that important. Now, in our next explainer, we're going to look at how modern companies don't just pick one of these models. Instead, they strategically combine them in a hybrid approach. So you'll definitely want to join us for that deep dive. The hybrid imperative, why one cloud doesn't fit all. Thank you so much for your time today. To keep exploring these complex topics in tech with us, please make sure to subscribe to our channel Tech, AI, and Beyond.